It's time to call to order the August 25th, 2016 meeting of the Oklahoma City Airport Trust. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the July 28th, 2016 Oklahoma City Airport Trust.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes, and it's approved. Next on the agenda is the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I do want to mention again, as I did last month, about the airport's enrollment location for PreCheck. That started this past Monday. It runs until September 3rd. So for 2 weeks, people can get online with TSA and go through the process of enrolling. It's just a few clicks and steps, and then you can choose your location at Will Rogers World Airport, and the location is in the center of the ticket counter level. We've had great success this week. Since Monday, we're averaging 110 people signing up per day. In fact, Pam Newell did it recently, and it took her 7 minutes. They are taking walk-ups, but if you do walk up, you risk that there may be some folks that have appointments ahead of you. And it may take a little bit longer as you do the paperwork, but you can do that. So I encourage everyone to do that. The benefits of that program is you keep your shoes and light jackets and belts on, and your laptops and your liquids you can keep in your bags. And it costs $85. It's for 5 years, and it does truly get you to the head of the line and expedite screening. So encourage people to apply for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now the airport parking study.
Yes, thank you. For the last few months, the airport has been underway with a parking facility study. We've engaged Kimley-Horn to help us in that. And this morning we have a presentation that Dave Albersman with Kimley-Horn is going to be providing. Towards the end of the presentation, Bill Case with Public Financial Management is also going to come up and talk about the finance scenarios that and our debt situation as we were going forward to contemplate some of the recommendations that are in the study. Mr. Albersman, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to bring you through a brief summary of the results of our parking facility study. It's a long-term 20-year plan with some specific recommendations for now and in the future. First of all, one of our goals, or our goals in doing this study, is to, as stated on the slide, is to improve customer service as best we can, increase revenues. Parking revenue is a big source of revenue to the airport, something like 30 or 40% of your revenue at the airport, so we want to make sure we nurture that revenue stream, make sure we don't get in the way of other things you're doing here at the airport. We looked at the master plan and made sure that what we're recommending is consistent with the master plan. And lastly, continue to provide a variety of parking products that you currently do at the airport. Just to orient you to the airport, and I know you're all familiar with this, but from left to right, we have a variety of parking products at the airport. Some of those are covered structured parking, some of those are surface lots. So from right to left, we have 3 parking garages. Garage A, which is currently short-term, and Garage B, long-term, Garage C, long-term, and then the surface lot 2. We also have some remote lots, the remote lot 1, which is the economy lot, and the covered surface lot to the west, I believe, to the upper portion. One of the things that prompted this study was the vacation of some of the rental car, all of the rental car facilities from the on-airport to the Conrack location. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And the other thing is the employee parking lot is in need of expansion. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Currently, this is a slide that talks about the number of spaces. Roughly, there are 7,600 spaces at the airport. Now, the 7,600 is the right-hand column under the year 2016. We gained 378 spaces as the rental cars vacated the lower level of Garage A and portion of Garage B. So we have 7,637 spaces. I want to call your attention to the last line that talks about effective supply, and that's going to come up a little bit during the course of this presentation. That is, effective supply is really the number of spaces that you can comfortably expect customers to use in a parking garage. Once you exceed that, looking for that last available space gets a little customer unfriendly, and therefore we designed to an effective parking supply rather than the actual physical parking supply. Now, there are times when it will be completely full, but for a customer service purpose, we like to work with an effective parking supply. We looked at a lot of statistics during the course of this study, and I'm going to show you two charts that talk about what's going on at the airport right now. This is the total parking activity at the airport, and that jagged line represents the peak or the midday occupancies on a Wednesday through the course of a year. There are times during Christmas, Thanksgiving, and spring break period when we exceed or approach the physical supply of the airport. And an airport, from a parking planning standpoint, should never be out of parking spaces. So we want to make sure that while we don't build expensive covered parking for all of those periods of time, that we have always available space at the airport, and we're going to address that in the study. The other line is what we designed to is an average busy day, and we want to make sure that all parking products are available to all customers during those periods of time. You can see by this that this 5,800 spaces is on an average busy day at the airport. As you no doubt know as well, one of the problems at the airport in terms of parking is not that you don't have currently enough parking spaces, but there is a tremendous demand for covered parking at the airport. And this graph shows the horizontal lines, total physical supply, total effective supply. And over the course of any given year, the garages are full, and people that would like to park in covered parking don't have covered parking available to them. So that becomes an issue that we're going to try to solve during the course of the recommendations that we set forth here. Parking demand, as common sense would tell you, and it's true, that it's a direct function of airline activity. So we use the projected future growth in airline activity at this airport for the next 20 years to project our demand based on current conditions, and then just projected it at a 1.7% increase over the next 20 years to come up with our future parking demand. This is a summary slide of parking demand, and we referred back to the peak day, which we're short now during those 3 or 4 periods of time, and then the average busy day, which there are, as I said earlier, plenty of parking, but not the kind of parking that people are looking for here at the airport. Many of those folks that would like to park in covered parking end up in the service lots because they're full. Here, this is always kind of an interesting slide for people at an airport. At your airport, 40% of the people park for less than 1 day, and a vast majority of those 40% of all parkers at this airport park for under 4 hours. I would say 90% of that group park for under 4 hours. So you have a lot of meeters and greeters, we call them well-wishers, people that drop off, customers that use that short-term parking a lot. There are some parkers, short-term parkers, that park in the garage, the long-term parking space, and that somewhat exacerbates even the shortage of covered parking at this airport. Not a large percent, but every little bit counts when it comes to your ability to provide covered parking at this airport. Our recommendations as they relate to this parking study are: one, and we'll talk about those as we proceed through, is one is to increase parking rates. Two is to develop a 1,700 space surface lot on the land that's been vacated by the rental car agencies. Develop a centralized, conveniently located cell phone lot of 50 spaces. Continue to use the short-term parking on level 2, and develop a premium parking product on level 1. And finally, develop a new 5-level parking garage to the north of Garage C. We looked at numerous options as it related to this new parking garage, and what we're going to talk about is two that we're still evaluating here. One is a 1,600 space parking garage to the north of level C. We would lose 316 spaces in the lot 2 because of the footprint of the parking garage, but then when this parking garage is built, there would be an additional 200 spaces lost because of construction staging. Just jumping back to that surface lot that we were talking about earlier, that 1,700 space surface lot. That surface lot is one meant to handle the excess parking demand that you have in those absolute peak days. It's also meant to accommodate the development of the new parking garage and the parking spaces lost during construction. And lastly, it's meant to satisfy employee parking demand. Right now you have 500 some odd employee parking spaces. You have 1,200 employees at this airport, and we want to make sure that we can accommodate those three user groups. So that surface parking lot is meant to do that and make this project seamless. We have a 1,600 car garage, 5 bays. You can see it doesn't affect the existing cashier plaza. And then we looked at a larger 2,100 space parking garage to accommodate future parking demand. This, you'll note, the cashier plaza needs to be relocated because we don't feel like there's enough queuing spaces for cars as they proceed into the existing cashier plaza. So that has another component that we would need to look at. But like I say, these two parking garages are the two that we're evaluating as to which way to go on this. Once again, we lose 403 spaces on this one and another 200 for the construction staging. Here's a summary of the cost of these two parking garages. The option 1, the smaller 1,600 space garage, is about $35 million, or at a cost per space of about $22,000 per space. And then the $48 million, did I say 35,000? $48 million parking garage, or $49 million, at a slightly higher cost, and that slightly higher cost has to do with relocating the cashier plaza. This chart, as we projected the demand for covered parking at this airport, we tried to project and did project how long this new garage would satisfy the demand for covered parking. So in option 1, we project that your need for a new parking garage, or the existing parking, the proposed future parking garage would satisfy your needs for covered parking through the year 2029. The option 2, the larger parking garage, would satisfy your needs for covered parking through the year 2036. The red line is the demand line for as we project covered parking at this airport. There are some initial improvements that you're considering and undertaking at this time in advance of the new parking garage. I'm going to leave Mark speak a little bit to describing what these.
Thanks, Dave. I'll turn the presentation back over to Dave, but the Airport Trust is and staff is making some significant investments in our existing facilities and the operation of our public parking operation. The parking and revenue control improvements, we actually, on this trust today, are awarding the contract to SCADATA to completely replace all of the infrastructure and equipment in the revenue control system that we have today, which is out of date, it's obsolete, difficult to get parts for, and it's no longer supported by the vendor that put in that system. It also, in the future, would not be a system that would be compliant with credit card processing. This new system will do that. It will also give us enhanced benefits so that we can include parking amenities for the customer, such as space-by-space counts, level-by-level counts, but pay-on-foot kiosks in various locations, and also other amenities. The new surface parking lot that he's talking about that has to be built before we do anything else as far as building a garage is intended to handle those displaced parkers. When we built Garage C, we had enough capacity and we didn't have the growth then that we have today. We were able to handle those displaced parkers, but we don't have that luxury today. Garage wayfinding is a project which is underway, as you know now. We're doing the roadway and the terminal signage as well, but we're finishing up the design on the garage wayfinding, and this is the cost of $1.3 million that's estimated for those improvements. Also on today's trust, the last two items, we're awarding the contract for the joint seal for the garage A repairs, also improving some spalled masonry and to some columns, and also waterproofing some structure. And then the Station 2 upgrades, we're awarding the contract for the A&E to start design on the Station 2 improvements, which is the escalator and elevator that comes right out of the tunnel. So again, significant investment, and that's the main reason for the parking rate increase at this time, is to offset those extra costs that are a little bit extraordinary than what we typically have.
Okay, thank you, Mark. In evaluating what sort of parking rate increase we could achieve here, we benchmarked the parking rates, particularly as it relates to the parking garage, against other airports of similar size and other airports also that might be also in the region that would be competitors to yours. And you can see by this graph that your long-term covered parking rates are significantly lower than some of the other airports, which is a good thing because it gives you room to move upward and still stay competitive with other similar sized airports. So this is the maximum daily rate in your garages. The other thing we looked at was the median revenue per employment, the gross revenue from the garage divided by the, or gross revenue of parking revenue divided by the annual employments. And you find that this is still lower than most of the benchmarked airports, but it's slightly higher than the daily, maximum daily rate. So based on this analysis, we are recommending that some rate increases be established or implemented, basically increasing the surface lots by $1 per day, keeping the short-term parking lot at $24 per day, and as I mentioned earlier, the addition of a premium lot, which we're still evaluating how that would be managed and who the target audience would be. So that'll be a number rate that's coming later, and increasing the parking garages in B and C by $2 per day. But that still was in the range of what comparable markets to the Oklahoma City market charge. What that does, as we projected, is with that increase, if it were implemented for the year 2017, we see approximately $2.3 million in new revenue to the airport. Referring back to the initial improvements that Mark discussed, which cost approximately $14 million, so that would be approximately 6-7 year payback on those improvements, those initial improvements. So in summary, what we're suggesting is that we begin the development and construction of that new 1,700 space surface lot for both public parkers and employees, implement the rate increases to offset those initial improvements, and then further analysis of the size of the parking garage, primarily related to the financial evaluation of what's desirable and doable relative to the new Garage D. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill, who's going to talk a little bit about the financial aspects of this proposed development.
Good morning. We've been working with the airport staff to develop a preliminary plan of finance for this project. The current plan is to finance the project with 30-year fixed-rate bonds. Interest would be capitalized at completion of construction. We've structured the debt service conservatively to be level annual debt service. The bond proceeds would also fund a debt service reserve fund equal to a year's worth of debt service, as well as cost of issuance on the transaction. The interest rate assumptions that we've used in the bond sizing calculations are conservative and higher than current market rates, and we've done that for planning purposes. So based upon these assumptions, the annual debt service for garage option 1 would be approximately $2.6 million. Then for garage option 2 would be $3.5 million. This graph here shows the debt service for the option 1. Both principal and interest would begin being paid. Partially interest in 2022, and then principal and interest from 2023 to fiscal year 2049 on a level basis. And then this graph just shows the same structure, but for parking garage option 2, which is a slightly higher debt service. This chart shows the this parking debt service as well as the existing junior lien debt service. As you can see, after 2022, there's a big drop-off in the existing debt services. So this creates good debt service capacity and provides an opportunity to issue this debt with minimal impact. And then again, this is the same structure just for option 2. This graph here also layers in the projected debt service for the upcoming terminal expansion project. I do want to note, you can see there's a spike in 2021, 2022 there. There's some opportunities to smooth that out. For instance, next year, the junior lien 29 series bonds will be callable, and so we can do some restructuring at that point to smooth out that debt service. Also want to point out that the terminal debt service there, shaded in green, approximately 70 to 75% of that debt service will be paid from PFC revenues, which are the passenger facility charge revenues charged to the passengers, remitted to the or airlines collected and remitted to the airport. So that, and only 25% of that debt service would be from airport revenues. And then this is the same chart for option 2, just a little bit slightly higher debt service. Then we included this chart. This is all the debt service existing plus the parking garage and terminal debt service that would be paid, just from airport revenues. Current time, the debt service is slightly under $4 million. With this new debt service, it would go up, just a shade under $6 million until 2027, and then go back down to the levels pretty close to where it is right now. And then same structure for option 2 here. So in our estimation, each of these options would be affordable from a bond financing standpoint, but we'll continue to work with the airport staff and consultants to analyze the revenue and expense impacts and projections as well as demand projections. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Cranenberg for any closing comments, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have.
I really don't have any closing comments at this time. I'll just opportunity for questions for either Dave or Bill.
Mark, do we know when our parking rates were increased last? What year?
We last increased rates in 2009, and that's when we did Garage C, and we went $1 up on every surface lot and $1 in the garage. I will say in 2001, we did a small adjustment to the short-term rate, but prior to that, we had not changed any of our parking rates since 1985.
And my other question is, our current toll plaza, do we know how old it is?
It's significantly old. It's functional. Some of the parking and revenue control system that we're dealing with today on today's award on the trust will enhance that somewhat, but the structure itself is outdated.
My comments are that, option 2 has the toll plaza in it, where you're going to have to replace that sooner or later anyway, and it's probably significantly outdated. And so that probably shouldn't be considered as a part of the cost. I mean, it's a cost you're going to have anyway. Secondly, I just think we ought to mark our calendar and study our parking rates every 5 years. It doesn't make sense to go longer. And
we agree.
So, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we try to keep it as close as we can.
Third, option 2 looks expensive, but if you go option 1, you're going to be in planning or construction for 4 years, and then you're only going to have an 8-year period, and then you're going to be in planning and construction again. And I don't think that's very user-friendly. I'd rather go through all that pain once instead of twice.
And I really don't want to see a series of garages that we have north of the terminal. That's not practical either.
Right. Thank you.
Well, with that, if the trust doesn't object, we'll move forward with those recommendations, and we'll move forward with towards selecting a design firm to design that new parking lot in the former rental car service centers area, and we'll bring an item back for the parking rate increase at a future trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Moving right along then, Will Rogers World Airport.
Item A is to accept the recommendation on the bids open on May 24th for the base maintenance building temporary boiler project. Award the construction contract to Jackson Boiler and Tank Company for $61,000, approving the contract and bonds. Item B is approving the change order with Schwartz Paving Company for the Academy Headquarters parking lot replacement project, adding $35,214 in 13 days. C is to approve change order number 2 to the contract with Wynn Construction Company for the Hangars 8 and 9 building envelope repairs project, adding $7,216.80 in 33 working days. D is to approve amendment number 3 to the contract for professional services with Olson Associates for the concrete apron pavement repair project, adding $69,927. Item E is to approve addendums number 1 and 2 for the Garage A repairs project and award the contract to Meridian Contracting for $363,659, approving the contract and bonds. F is approving amendment number 1 to the contract with Benham Design for the reconstruction of Station 2 and the evaluation of all of our other people moving equipment, adding $373,205. G is to accept the completed project for the Snow Barn roof coating project with Oklahoma Roofing and Sheet Metal. H is approving the contract for parking access and revenue control system with Ski Data. This is $3,423,766.09, approving the performance bond. I is approving the amendment number 3 to the contract with Kimley-Horn and Associates for the airport parking facilities and revenue study. We're adding $17,500. J is receiving the staff recommendation on the bids for the ground lease agreement with Lamar Central Outdoor Advertising, approving the ground lease with Lamar for $118,000. K is adopting the joint resolution between the Airport Trust and the city to submit grant applications for Will Rogers World Airport. We have 3 grants we're seeking next year with the FAA, and this item also outlines the responsibilities for accepting and signing these grants, subject to trust and city council ratification. Item L is approving the performance bonds for Advantage Rent-A-Car and EAN Holdings. M is to concur with the review committee and authorize the negotiation of a contract with ADG for the terminal building upper deck roadway structural restoration and soffit evaluation project. Item N is amendment number 4 to the contract with MacArthur Associated Consultants. This is to extend taxiways H1, H2, and G for $158,687.20. O is accepting the grant funds offered by the FAA for the airport's terminal building enabling works project, and P is to approve addendas 1 and 2 for the terminal expansion enabling works package. We're awarding that contract to Wynn Construction, $1,849,498, approving contract and bonds. That's all for Will Rogers.
Comments or questions from the trustees? Question, Mark?
Yes, sir.
Before we go on. The study that we just talked about is going to, as far as the functioning of parking, is going to require some new software and some new hardware in order to accommodate the future plans. And we're, in this item here with Ski Data, we're talking about approving a contract that deals with that kind of a subject.
Yes.
How do those two dovetail, or how do they go together?
They're the same consulting firm, but they're actually 2 separate projects. The study on the facility study was separate from the RFP that we put out for the parking access and revenue control system that was competed by several vendors, and
Right.
Kimley-Horn assisted us in that evaluation. But all of the equipment and the installation that's going into the existing infrastructure for all of our surface lots and parking garages will be done by Ski Data.
Okay, but the item that we listened to today.
Yes.
Talks about expanding the way the parking is going to happen.
Yes.
How will that impact the hardware and software that we're approving here today?
We have planned for that. For instance, in this contract with Ski Data, we have built in to the cost of this $3.4 million to include all of that software equipment installation into the new parking lot that we'll be building into the rental car service center. It will also be adaptable to be able to extend to the new garage.
Okay, so the word adaptable, that's key to me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, I misunderstood your point from the beginning. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And it is so approved. Moving along, next up, Wiley Post and Clarence Page.
Wiley Post is to approve Amendment 6 to the contract with Libra for the airfield infrastructure repairs and improvements Phase 2 project. We're adding $22,410 in 7 days. This is at Wiley Post Airport. Item B is to adopt the joint resolution between the city and the trust to submit a grant application for a Wiley Post project, authorizing again who can accept and sign for the grant, subject to ratification by the city and the airport trust. Item C is we do not need an executive session for this item, but we are asking to rescind the consent order previously approved by the trust with the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, authorizing the municipal counselor's office to enter into a new consent order. And those are all the items under general aviation.
You've heard the items under general aviation. Desire of the trustees.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And they are approved. Next on the agenda, general items.
Under general, we just have our reports to receive our delinquent accounts receivable report, construction report, and the budget to actual.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Please cast your votes. And they are so received. Lease and other agreements.
Only one lease agreement, and that's with the U.S. Marshal Service. This is for the annual adjustment on their rentals with regard to their insurance.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Please cast your votes. And the lease and other agreements are approved. The items under Roman numeral 8.
Just request the approval of all the requisitions, please.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? They are adopted. Comments from trustees? Seeing none. Comments from staff? Again, seeing none. Any citizens wishing to be heard? Seeing none, we are adjourned.